What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wayfinder Podcast, a pseudoscientific, quasi-philosophical, non-expert discussion platform where we talk about spirituality, science, the metaphysical, religion, mythology, and pretty much anything we can get our hands on that we think is interesting or informative or uplifting or insightful or that helps us to find balance in our lives. All toward the objective of helping everyone find balance in their lives so we can make a more balanced world and do it in an entertaining way. Today we've got a really special treat for you. This is the first part of a 4-part series, so I'll take just a second to kind of line that out for you. We brought in EJ from Freedom Faction. Freedom Faction is a social media-based alternative news outlet, and although you wouldn't think of news as being part of our normal fare here on the show, under the surface, EJ is actually a big fan of the occult and of the esoteric, of the hidden mysteries of the world, and of spirituality, metaphysics, all that stuff. And the reason why this is so special, besides the fact that EJ is an awesome guy and we had a tremendous couple of days with him here in the studio and outside of the studio, is that he actually brought in a bunch of government documents that talk about a lot of funky, spooky, esoteric and occult, spiritual, metaphysical type of stuff. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you guys get into the episodes to kind of see what I mean by that. But he brought a lot to the table for this discussion, and it really turned out to be an awesome couple of days. You guys are gonna love it. We go really, really deep. In this first episode, we talk about everything from God, good and evil, being thankful to the divine, trying to understand what the divine is. Talk about the influence that religions have had on our lives and on the lives of lots of people. Talk about all kinds of metaphysics. Thoth the Atlantean and the Emerald Tablets, the Corpus Hermeticum, the Alchemist. We talk about having mystical experiences and having a community of people that you can share those experiences with and the benefits and virtues that brings to your life. And a lot more. First episode's a great introduction into what we eventually get into. Episode 2, psychedelics. Some of the best conversation on psychedelics I think is available anywhere. And then we get into magic and the occult. And some really crazy stuff. We're talking about government studies, basically secret science that the government has been doing under different agencies and aliases for the better part of half a century or more. Really cool, really crazy stuff. So this is part 1, and I would recommend that you need to check out all 4 parts, but do it sequentially. Because we lay the groundwork, and it'll make sense if you do it sequentially. But I can promise you that if you do it, you're going to love it. It's some of the best listening that I've heard in a very long time. I'm really, really happy with the way that this turned out for you guys. We had no idea. We had no idea how much time we'd be able to fill talking, how much conversation we could have, how much common ground we would really even have. But this ended up being some of the most synergistic and just badass conversation I think that I've ever had in my life. So it was a lot of fun to do. And we're so thankful to EJ and Freedom Faction and On the Wake Up Radio, all of his production team and everybody for promoting this and for helping put this together in different ways. So I think that's probably it. Without further ado, here's EJ from Freedom Faction on the Wayfinder Podcast. And we're live.
We're live?
With EJ from Freedom Faction.
Hey.
What's up, dude?
What's going on? Thank you for having me.
Adam JC in the house on the Wayfinder side. Welcome to the Wayfinder Podcast. It's good to have you guys here. It's a beautiful, what day is it?
It's Wednesday.
I knew that.
Hump day.
And it is a beautiful day.
Beautiful hump day. It rained like fucking crazy today, and then it got beautiful. EJ flew in from Albuquerque.
Yeah, it's because I brought the beauty.
You brought the beauty.
You did. About the time you were arriving here, I was like, man, this is not the way we want you to be introduced to where we're at. And then the sun
He's from New Mexico. He's never seen rain. He can't handle this.
Don't you know, us desert rats, we don't know what to do whenever there's rain. We just kind of freak out.
Yeah.
There's storms, and so
I know.
just kind of
but it dried up.
Royos.
You landed, it dried up, and we're good.
I try.
We're going to have such an awesome conversation today. I'm excited. We've been having Instagram Live problems, so If you're hearing this right now, you will be hearing it in retrospect in a recording. And we're going to kick on the Instagram Live here in just a minute. So we'll have some questions from the followers from Freedom Faction side and then from the Shamanic Philosophy side too. But let me tell you about the fucking stack of documents this cat brought into the studio. Because we got a whole library of kick-ass information on, everything. I'm not even going to dig into it right now because we're going to get into it. But we got unclassified documents. This is,
It's about Carillion photography and stories of how they're able to document psychokinetic abilities in Russia and Japan since the 60s.
That is it's super awesome. I can't wait to tell people about that and to learn about that because I don't really know much about it. I didn't know anything about what that was.
Project Real Flame, Project
earlier
Street,
today.
Project Cinder Lane. Also, they're sub-projects of Project Stargate.
Yeah.
Basically, you had the CIA in like the 60s.
Yeah.
Offshoot of Project MK Ultra, investigating like that, the psychopotentiality of humanity, how their thoughts can affect reality.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all kinds of cool shit.
Go deep.
Yeah.
Go deep.
Going super deep into this stuff.
Yeah.
I told you I don't watch a lot of news. Try not to. So
it's poison.
It can be a lot, man. It's kind of overwhelming. So the Freedom Faction Instagram page has become kind of like my news source, which is one of the really cool things about having you here. It's like I told you that I did an experiment with my kids after Trump got elected, and I was like, hey, we're going to turn on CNN for a few days. Like nothing but CNN, and then we're going to turn on nothing but Fox News for a few days. And we're just going to alternate for a couple weeks. And like my 8-year-old and my 6-year-old at the time and like my 10-year-old were like, dang, it's obviously a bunch of nonsense.
Obviously polarized.
Yeah, it's just, these people are just, it's like they can't all be right. So somebody's making a lot of shit up. It doesn't make sense. And so we did that experiment for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, man, I'm not doing this anymore.
Seems frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it, and paying attention to it that way, especially, the specific contrast between just like flipping one on for 3 or 4 days and then the other and just seeing the absurdity of the whole thing and then being confronted by that absurdity again with my kids when my 6-year-old's like, Dad, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
But you're looking for lies and that never makes sense.
Yeah. It's not good. So we just canceled our TV service.
Hey.
So we haven't had TV service. We have Netflix, like Vudu. And HBO for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, of
so
course.
that I can watch Game of Thrones every day.
Some content is fine, but there are people that, unfortunately, in my family, I have one side of my family is, let's say, a Fox News side of the family, and the other side is an MSNBC side of the family. And the conversations you have, you can feel it and you can see it. You go, oh, you're watching way too much Fox News because your facts are one-sided as all get out. Have you ever thought? I got to the point where I stopped contradicting in conversations. That don't talk about religion and politics and family functions is a good thing. But you get to where you just stop. You go, oh no, you're addicted to Fox News, and that's your main source of information. So your main point of view is so skewed by the media.
Yeah,
and that's, I guess, one of the things I try to just take into consideration when putting out like any kind of content. I try not to use like mainstream media sources. Like we have CNN, Reuters, Telegraph, .co.uk,
Russia Today, my favorite, Al Jazeera.
We have them all. I see them every day. I see what they're posting. That doesn't mean I have to post it. I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, that's an interesting perspective you guys have over there. And then I look at like all the other alternative media platforms, and I'm just like,
what are some of your favorite places to get news? Because you're my favorite place to get news.
Oh man, your Newswire, yournewswire.com is just like they purposely, I feel like they do this on purpose. They purposely create like titles and headlines that are just like to the point, to where it's like Trump is invading Afghanistan for the oil. No, like, oh, we're thinking about pulling the troops out for blah blah. No, Trump's staying in Afghanistan because of the oil.
They need some freedom.
They need some freedom.
Bring them the freedom.
And you read the article, and they just have it like on point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes.
Just right down the middle.
Right down, just facts.
Is what it is.
Fact. That's why, like, the Free Thought Project, like,
I love those guys. By the way, so real quick for anybody who doesn't know, since we just kind of dove into this thing head first, but so Freedom Faction is a page on Instagram. Do you guys do Facebook, or is it primarily Instagram?
We do Fedbook.
You got the Fed book.
We do Fed book.
Yeah. Okay. So they're on Fedbook and on Instagram. But Freedom Faction is just a phenomenal alternative news outlet that I've been following for a while, and EJ runs that over there. And these guys just kill it, man. It's just good information. It's nonpartisan, or maybe anti-partisan is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just getting through the bullshit and shooting people right down the middle, and also stepping out of the paradigm and touching on some things, 5G and vaccinations and other stuff that are, I think, really important.
Yeah.
And then personally, another really cool thing about having EJ here is there's a whole lot of other really cool shit that may not be on your daily feed, right? It may not be as relevant to the daily feed, the daily news that some people are interested in, but it's super exciting and super interesting stuff. All of the declassified documents, alien technology, and psychokinetic studies and all kinds of crazy shit. So we're going to get into all that, spirituality, God, flat earth.
Yep. I'm crazy.
Everything. Yeah.
If we have some mutual listeners between our, I know.
Yeah, we got to have some mutual listeners
I know
between
we
us,
do.
I think.
I know we do, bro. For the non-mutual listeners, for the Shamanic Philosophy podcast, the Wayfinder podcast listeners, I'm crazy, and I have no problem admitting it, because would I want to be sane in an insane world?
No.
There you go. And that's it. I hate. I hate. I look at all the information. I look at the news and stuff that's going out there every single day. I feel like sometimes I can see like the Earth changing, the shift, the rotation, right, in people's mindsets, perceptions, how the Hegelian dialectic that the mainstream media is pushing, and all kinds of other stuff out there like that. I specifically wanted to create a platform for people like ourselves, independent researchers, people who could just start up a page, who couldn't get on Coast to Coast or something like that, or who couldn't reach out to Alex Jones, or who couldn't do all these things. I wanted to create like a platform for us to talk about this type of stuff, so we could have our own network for new listeners.
Which you've done. And everywhere I turn, I see your shit everywhere.
I freak out.
It's all over the place.
I freak out.
Do you see your stuff in a lot of places?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
You know what I mean? Chris Brown reposted one of my shits one time.
He follows, bro. Chris Brown follows.
Yeah, dude.
So does Jaden Smith, Waka Flocka Flame, Sugar Rashad Evans. We have,
really?
There's another, not Steph Curry. There's another celebrity that went out and talked about flat Earth, and I don't believe in flat Earth.
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't think anyone's a flat earther at this table.
No,
but
I don't. But,
you know,
but they follow me
because
because of the content we put out.
Sure.
And so, I could sit up over here and be like, "Oh, look at all the celebrities." It's not about that. It's the fact that these celebrities, Kelly Slater, even Kelly Slater, surfer from like the 2000s. We all love that guy. He follows. That means that these people in these higher positions of life, they have no idea what's going on. They're just as disconnected.
Do you know who I started talking to that was super exciting to me? A guy named Mike Metzger. Mike Metzger was a professional freestyle motocross guy back when I was like into motocross when I was younger. He was a hero of mine, bro. This was like a crazy moment for me because this dude was a hero. I watched all of his movies, all the crazy shit. He was the first dude to like land a backflip on a motorcycle.
Nice.
He was like my hero. And then all of a sudden I saw him liking my shit a few months ago. Like he like spam liked all my shit.
Heart drop,
freak out, messaged him, was like, oh my God, you know, total fangirl all over this guy.
Yep.
And then he responds and he's like, your shit's really cool. I like, you know, the fact that you're trying to bring awareness about a lot of this shit to people and getting people to think outside of the usual box and breaking people out of their zombie state. So Mike Metzger is not only this like most legendary motocross rider of all time, but he's like fucking really cool and humble enough to talk to a dipshit like me. And then I had a conversation with him and he continued to respond. It turns out he's a really cool person. And you start realizing that like there are celebrities and people in these places that are taking an interest in this stuff, in the truth, in the whole truth movement. It's attracting more people in different levels of society. And it's not just us crazy, fringy, weirdo conspiracy theorists. It's like there's a lot of people that are really trying to get involved in this and reposting uplifting things. And
the narrative is changing about the conversations that y'all are having. It is no longer a crazy thing to discuss this stuff. Now it's piquing interest in not just a select few groups of people, walks of life. It is the common person walking around is going, this just seems weird. There's got to be something better out there, and you guys are providing knowledge and understanding an entryway into a different way of thinking about everything. I mean, literally all things. You guys cover so many different things. You're on an opposite spectrum, but in the same way of just it's opening people's eyes, opening their third eyes, opening their just day-to-day. Let me ask you, since you communicate with hundreds of thousands on your page and people that are coming for this, how long ago did you start this up?
Geez, what are we? We're in like 2019 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling Adam the last time I was in not the last time. I left Texas, I think in like 2012, 2013, and I basically came to New Mexico at 2012, 2013. Started doing this and didn't look back. I think I did like a year or two of music whenever I first came back, like getting involved in hip hop and EDM and stuff like that. But I had like a revelation doing that kind of work to where it's like, because I have a song still out there. One of the verses is, I don't want the gold, I don't want the clothes, I want the scrolls to open up your soul. And so I realized that music and media, speech, could be an effective medium to delivering and opening up information.
And how long ago was that?
That had to have at least been like maybe 5-6 years ago.
So you've been doing the Freedom Faction thing for 5 or 6 years.
I've been doing Freedom Faction for 4 years.
On Instagram.
On Instagram, yeah, for 4 years. I started the page, but I think back in 2012. Haven't changed the name since. But I did all of this type of work underneath a new
Before that,
underneath a different moniker, the Vanguard of Renaissance. What I was telling you.
Yep.
Whenever we were out earlier, and so it was the same thing. Is trying to talk about all this stuff, but not having the proper vernacular, the information, the knowledge, experience, none of it. Just saying, hey, look, we need to talk about X, Y, and Z, not Kim Kardashian. Like, there's stuff going on. We're changing.
Something's happening here.
Yeah, something's happening internally too. Because I think this was like one of the major things for me. Is like 2012 happened, right? And I'll be real with you. I was lit, man. I was doing some crazy stuff. I was basically out there having my own like little rave show all the time, making too much money doing dumb stuff.
I like raves.
Yeah, me too. That's why I don't. That's why I had to consciously go do something different. But we thought the world was ending, right? The world didn't end. It's a different age, a different time.
Yeah.
And here's where
new cycle.
New cycle. And that's what I find myself like slowly coming to like grips with. Is just like that choice you made back then. You didn't think it made a huge difference, did you? You committed to this choice, and that's the change. Like I was telling you before, the only thing that's changed, because the earth has been here, the only thing that's changed is you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And that's all that's changed over the years of doing this. Is the fact that we've evolved from a simple page sharing rehashed old memes to creating content to networking with people like the Anti-Media, the Free Thought Project, the Minds Unleashed, the Activist Post, you name it, to building what we're trying to build. Like it's crazy because that was not the initial intention. The initial intention was to talk about the information to try to help raise awareness about a wide variety of issues. Now it's just something else entirely.
Yeah, these networks are forming around this information.
Yes.
And around the dissemination of it.
Yes.
You brought up the Free Thought Project. Those guys are a massive, awesome outlet for for information and for ideas. And I really like the way that they share them, the way they put their posts together, and the way that it's clean, it's slick. You see them everywhere. It's professional, and again, they're super anti-partisan.
Yeah.
I think I reposted one of their things earlier. It was just like,
I
Republicans are stupid. Democrats are stupid. Stop doing it.
I think if you're coming from a place of truth, you have to speak the truth from a place that there is no one right side or the other. There's bad everywhere. There's good everywhere. It's spread. It's mixed. It's convoluted. And if you're actually trying to make a difference and bring truth to people, you can't come from an angle.
Yeah.
Because now you're closing you're putting blinders on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you find people like that are open and willing to admit and have such a broad spectrum, that's how at least for me, I'm looking for authenticity, and I find it in pages like that aren't one-sided on any subject. They're willing to at least, I don't know, entertain both sides, even let's go, flat earth.
Yeah, right.
There's people that can entertain the argument for...
Well, who was it? Socrates or Plato or one of those...
So you can entertain an idea. The
sign of true intelligence to be able to entertain an idea without
holding it as fact.
Yeah, essentially that's it. Without accepting it or something, but yes, just whatever it was.
And that's kind of how I choose to look at a lot.
Well, you just did. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole right now.
Let's do it. I don't care what rabbit hole it is. Let's do it.
You just hosted a flat Earth debate between a couple of the big pages on Instagram.
I didn't host it, but I had the post debate wrap up.
Oh, okay, that's what you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I want to host one for the future.
Why the fuck would you do that to yourself?
Because of
glutton for punishment.
Don't you know I'm a sadist?
God, no kidding.
I like the pain.
You must.
Well, is for what he said right there.
Yeah.
And what you just said as well, confirming it. We have to look at this stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, I know. Trust me, I know. But we have to. And so what I've allowed for this, or what I've chosen to do with this, is use it as a vehicle or medium to talk about other things. Things such as density, light, multiple dimensions, planar existences. Sure.
That's my shit.
That's what I'm saying.
That's my shit.
That's where I like to go. Sure, we could talk about the shape of the earth, but what does it mean?
Do you have you read any Walter Russell?
I have not.
I was looking around to see if I had a book over here. He wrote a book called The Universal One.
Okay.
And he was a contemporary of Tesla's, and he sent his.
And what was that one more time?
It's Walter Russell, and the book's called The Universal One. And they called him when he was, like I said, he was a contemporary of Tesla's, and they called him Manhattan's Da Vinci.
Okay.
And he was a polymath. And he was an artist and a poet and a musician, a composer and a mathematician and a scientist, and he was a fucking genius, and he was amazing. And if you go to philosophy.org, that's his website. That's his, that's their Walter Russell Foundation website, philosophy.org. And the dude had a better, as far as I'm concerned, from my viewpoint, that dude had a better grip on the nature of God, the universe, consciousness, light, vibration, and the cosmos than any other human being in human history.
We should stay on this.
Yeah,
we should stay on this.
Yeah, totally. Because what he wrote about in the Universal One is just all these different ways of looking at the principle of duality, of light and dark, and positive and negative, and he broke all the different. He broke vibration down into musical harmonics, musical scales.
I think I might. Continue. I think I might have seen something.
There's an Instagram account called Light is Consciousness, and 98% of what they post is Walter Russell stuff. I don't know if they're affiliated with the Walter Russell Foundation, but Light is Consciousness is the name of that account, and they are incredible.
It shows like a diagram of like a head, and then it shows like the different frequencies and like the different parts of the brain that like react to different parts of the frequencies.
Probably so.
I think I might.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff. His big thing is, that book, The Universal One, is the most elegant and beautiful and life-changing examination of God, the universe, consciousness, and vibration that was ever written. I've never read anything like it. I can only read about a page at a time, and I go into a sort of a trance. It knocks me out. It's like taking a sleeping pill.
It's because it's so much.
It's so much, and it's so deep, and it's so true. It just hits you on that deep level, and you read it. It's fucking heavy, man. It's just like, oh my God, and it makes so much sense, and it's just, these are deep shit. So Walter Russell sent Nikola Tesla a copy of that book, and Tesla said, lock this up for 1,000 years. The universe, the human race is not ready for this. And I've got an autographed copy of one of his books.
Okay.
And I got one from one autographed by his wife. Then I hunted them down on eBay. And they were cheaper. The autographed copies were cheaper. These were like two of his other books, not the Universal One. I think I paid like $60 and like $80 for those two autographed copies because nobody knows who the fuck they are.
Of course.
And then, but to buy the Universal One, I think I had to spend like $150 to get the book because it's not in print. So I bought like a 40-year-old book, but it's like brand new. It was like still had, the pages are still like stuck together, but it hadn't been opened in 40 years. So it's like, it's one of those things where if you're listening to this right now,
you're like holding on to history, basically.
Yeah. If you're listening to this right now, go buy a copy of that book. And I have a lot of the people that follow our page that hit me up and they were like, "Hey, what's the name of that book?" They're and they went out and bought one. Like, people were like, dude, it's worth the money. Go spend it. It's the best book I've ever read. If I got stuck on a desert island for the rest of my life and had one book to take with me, that would be the book.
That would
Really?
be the manual.
Yeah, you need to do it.
And it's that deep.
It's the deepest book I've ever read, and I've read the Corpus. Well, it's as deep as the Corpus Hermeticum, but it's easier to read because it was written in the last 150 years instead of 2,000 years ago. But yeah, it's super deep.
What I like and appreciate about your quality of work is audio listeners can't see this clearly because you're listening, but there's two encyclopedias here of Freemasonry, right? And these are just the books that he just wants you to see, meaning that he has like more books at home. And where I get my information is from like this overwhelming amount of research and shit that I do. I like that you have like books and stuff that you can reference to people that talk about this, that like consecrate the information and put it into a book to where it can be like digested. I feel like I don't have that level of reference besides like documents.
Dude, but I can't get declassified fucking documents in book form. You know what I mean?
Printer ink. I need printer ink and ammo.
Yeah.
That's how Freedom Faction runs.
Freedom Faction runs on pure printer ink and ammo. That's fucking American. So number one, I love books. I love to collect them. Number two, I have wicked ADD. So I can't sit down and read a book cover to cover the way that, you guys or a lot of people probably can. So, like, I just bought a stack of 60 Van Gogh bookmarks.
Nice.
On Amazon. Like $10.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So I think, JC, you were over at the house.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I have a few.
Gave you a few. Like, you pick a few. Gave my buddy Josh a couple. So if you come over, I'm going to give you a couple bookmarks as a keepsake.
I want one.
Oh, dude. Yeah, you're going to come over. We're going to do it. So,
one.
But what you will find is books laying all over my fucking house with bookmarks stuck in them. Because that's how I read. It's like I've flipped through.
You read thoughts.
Yeah. I just go through and I'm just like, flip through, find something, read a chapter, stick a bookmark in it, leave it on the nightstand, and then 2 weeks later I'll pick it back up. But in that time I've hit 10 or 15, 20 other books on all kinds of shit,
And different perspectives are being brought when
you're
reading it too.
Totally.
A whole new perspective.
Yeah, and some of these books, like Corpus Hermeticum is a 2,000-year-old book. Universal One is a 100-year-old book. You get to see how people's minds, the minds of the writers have evolved over time.
Well, you're not supposed to pick up, like, let's say, just take the Bible, the Holy Bible. You're not supposed to pick that up and read it page 1 to finish.
It certainly wasn't written that way.
It's not made in a lot of these books that are steeped in knowledge, that are heavy. They're not page turners in the sense that they're not bad books.
It ain't Harry Potter.
They're not Twilight. Yeah.
You're not. It's not Harry Potter. It is not a fiction where you're just like, ooh, what happens next? What happens next? No, you have to process what you have to take a bit of information and process it.
You get a fucking tumor on your frontal lobe trying to do that with Walter Russell.
Good. Take some months trying to digest that.
Yeah.
I think a part of what we were talking about right there, the fact that they're dumbing down information that it's supposed to be rapid consumption.
Man, that's a good point.
Shows the depreciation of it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like if we could explain like what the Corpus Hermetica is.
So the Corpus Hermeticum is supposedly, and this story is debated by some people, but I believe it's true because I know enough about the history of the Renaissance and the Medici family and the dynasty to feel like this makes a lot of sense to me. Is the Corpus Hermeticum was a book that was written around the time of Christ, probably compiled at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt around that time, probably compiled by a handful or a couple of Greek philosophers or remnants of Greek philosophers during Roman times. Could date a couple hundred years earlier. Some people think a couple hundred years later, but it's almost certain to me that this is Gnostic information that came from the Library of Alexandria, and this information was pretty well hidden or lost, I guess, probably from the time of Alexandria's library being burned until the Renaissance. A lot of people say, and I think rightfully so, that the entire Renaissance happened because of this book's rediscovery. So the Medici family, a lot of people know that Leonardo da Vinci was working for the Medici family. They were the rich banking family in Italy and Florence at the time of the Renaissance. And they were avid collectors of art, history, and antiquities. And Da Vinci was their dude. And they because they bought most of his artwork, and they told him to make certain artwork, and they hooked him up with other people who wanted commissioned artworks done. And so the Medicis were big into this. And then they had translators that sorry, I had to burp. I didn't want to do it in the microphone.
It happens.
For all the listeners out there. We do, we've talked about this every time. Drinking beer on a podcast results in...
It's because you're getting that out.
Yeah, just getting rid of it. So the Medicis had translators that worked for them, and they had a translator working on a Plato translation, and they were translating the works of the great Plato, right? We would think of like that guy as the guy. It's Plato. You know what I mean? There is no philosopher above him, and
this is true.
You know what I mean? But they received a shipment of scrolls from the Arabian Peninsula, and amongst these was the Corpus Hermeticum, which, if you know how the root of Hermeticum, Hermes, which is the Greek messenger of the god Mercury, in the Roman culture, was Hermes of the Greeks, was Thoth of the Egyptians.
Okay.
So think God of wisdom, God of all knowing. This is his writing.
Okay.
Right.
This guy right here.
Yep. We got a Thoth statue right there. That's my dude. So the Corpus Hermeticum, as I see it, is probably ancient knowledge passed down from Egypt. That all of the priests and philosophers of Egypt, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, all sort of adapted this and molded it and refined it, and eventually it washed up at the in the early 1500s, late 1400s, and the Medici family told their translators, "Hey, put that Plato shit down." Translate.
This is that new shit.
This is that new shit. It's that fire.
This is where we're going.
Yeah, this is the future. Plato's the past. This is the future.
Okay.
They translated the Corpus Hermeticum, and Europe explodes into the greatest renaissance in human history.
It sounds a little bit like the Emerald Tablets.
The story of the Emerald Tablets is actually the story of the Corpus Hermeticum.
Okay.
That's the Corpus Hermeticum exists today, and we can read it.
Right.
I think I've got an extra copy at the house for you. You can have.
Okay.
And usually the really good books, I usually try to keep a couple of them around.
Smart man.
Like JC's got 10 copies of The Alchemist. I think he's still handing out to everybody like fucking Johnny Appleseed.
I'll take one.
I think
this is how it should be. You should be sharing knowledge with your friends.
Yeah.
Not STDs.
That's so true.
Yes.
So true.
Yes. Make knowledge contractable.
Yeah. Make knowledge contractable again. What the fuck was I saying? So the story of the Emerald Tablets, I've read that, and the Emerald Tablets were written by Doriel in 1929 or in the 20s. The information I do believe in the Emerald Tablets, I know this is kind of off the subject of the Corpus Hermeticum, but because you brought it up, I do think that those were legitimately channeled works.
Okay.
Like I do think that those were legitimately channeled from tapping into that deity, to the Thoth, the Atlantean deity. If you understand how channeling works, it's not demonic, it's not satanic, it's not that simple, but it's very complicated actually. But I do think that those works were authentic as far as being channeled works. But the Corpus Hermeticum is just a work of some dude. It's just, we don't know who, but it's I think compiled knowledge, from ancient Egypt through Greece to Rome, and then somebody, one of the Gnostic types around the time of Jesus, wrote this as a dialogue, which I didn't really understand that until I read it. Why you would write something as a dialogue, and like why Plato wrote the Critias and the Timaeus, and why dialogue seemed to be the way that the ancient philosophers like to write. And it's really simple. EJ, you and I were talking about this earlier.
Ages. Cycles.
Simpler.
Time.
We were talking about how it's hard to do a monologue. It's easy to answer questions when someone else is asking you questions.
This is true.
So in the book,
it's the way it's presented.
It's the way it's presented. So in the book, the guy writes a dialogue. So it's the story. It's between Hermes and a student. He's writing this thing between Hermes and a student, and the student says, "Master, how come, or how does God work, and how did God create the universe?" And he's like, "Well, here's how." Da, 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 da. And he's like, "Okay, well, how am I to understand the way that this works or whatever? Well, here's how. Da, 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 da.
And this is in the Corpus Hermeticum.
It's in the Corpus Hermeticum.
Okay.
So it's supposedly an interview between Hermes and a student.
Wow.
And it's just absolutely, my girlfriend and I spent some time, it took both of us to read it. And we would read one paragraph, like I'd read it, and like we were just sitting in the kitchen chilling, cooking or whatever, and I would read this paragraph, and we would stop and analyze it.
Yep.
And then we'd have to like read it over again and over again. It's the densest book I've ever read. And there were times we would just throw our hands up. And we're like, this is fucking insane. This is just insane shit that no one could come up with this. It's just too deep. It's too insane. And it was the founding document of Hermeticism, which is the understanding of the duality principles of, as above, so below, as within, so without. All that comes from the Corpus Hermeticum.
Major and minor arcana.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Very deep shit, but I don't know. I'm not smart enough to read it by myself. It took me and Ashley both.
Hey, man, I hear you on that. Get
It
Dr.
takes a
Seuss
village.
for me.
It takes a village. No, but in that format, that makes sense. That
doesn't it?
It's a little bit more retainable than here's a proclamation. Now dissect it and figure out what I was talking about. Versus, Master, what is this? And you go, oh, what is that? Oh, I want to. And then now I'm gonna.
Yep.
I have an idea to focus around as I'm reading this part of it. You've laid out a thesis statement, and now I know what I'm reading about. Versus reading about something, go, wait, what were they trying to say?
Such a better way to write.
Yeah, it does seem a lot more friendly, especially to somebody like me, a novice, into reading in these esoteric pieces of literature. They're intimidating.
Oh, dude.
Where do I start? Ooh,
Yeah.
Or am I even? Is it going to fly right over my head?
Shit gets deep quick.
Yeah. And so you get intimidated, and you don't even try sometimes.
And as a writer, and I've struggled with this as a writer because it's like sometimes I'm going, who the fuck am I talking to when I'm writing? Like, because telling you a story is different than telling EJ a story. Telling my kid a story is different than telling my mom a story. And so it's like you're writing a book, especially like you say, with some of this esoteric knowledge. Like it's not all that straightforward to begin with.
No.
Yep.
It's not easy for anybody to really get. It's not easy to really explain to anybody. So if I can at least refine it down to a dialogue between me and if it's my kid asking me questions, I can go, okay, buddy, here's a way that a 13-year-old can understand it. Mm-hmm. So as a writer, if you can create that teacher-student dialogue in your mind and lay it out on paper, I think it's a brilliant way to engage, to explain, your ideas versus the big monologue sort of way that we tend to do things nowadays. And I've put a lot of thought into doing my own writings that way, because of that. So got to check out that Corpus Hermeticum.
That's how C.S. Lewis, the author of
Narnia and stuff. Yeah, Tolkien's buddy.
Yeah, that's how he wrote. What was it? Screw Tape Letters.
Not surprised.
Where it's two demons trying to figure out how they're gonna win souls for Satan.
Yeah,
they have like a whole discussion about like how to basically entrap somebody so you can win their soul for the devil.
Yeah.
And this is the author of Alice in Wonderland, Narnia, who's writing this, saying, hey, if there were demons, this is how they would talk about moving you away from salvation.
And so he gets to outline the whole process. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant way of working it.
Through low-level demons, through higher-level demons, through sophisticated people, and even religious people as well. But it's because of the way that they're able to use the demons as the medium to deliver that information, because you're not going to think right now we're thinking like in our current mindset, like our current mental paradigm where we've already built it. Reading it in that kind of fashion, interpreting information in that fashion removes you from yourself and puts you essentially in that student position where you're being forced to learn.
We've had this conversation about many different media facets. I'm a big movie guy, so I always go to movies and stuff, but I find that the more I look back, the more knowledge I gain on not just esotericism, but truth in the way that the universe works and actually how things. I go back and I see things, and I now even seeing things for the first time. It seems like truth is embedded. That's the way right now. That's the main way, and you just don't have too many people having conversations just about it on the nose.
Yeah,
you find it snuck in or brought to you in a way that it's misdirection in a sense, and it's for a good purpose, but that just seems to be the way that people can talk about things that, if you just said, hey, I'd really like to talk about this subject, a lot of people go, oh, I don't want to talk about that. But you tell it into a story, you weave it into a narrative.
totally to your point. I just read like yesterday, somebody said something about some old poet or philosopher, somebody said, we have drama so that we don't die from the truth. Or we create drama or theater or whatever so we don't die from truth. And I don't know, that resonated with me, and it's just because truth can be difficult to swallow in direct discussion. It can be difficult to face, it can be terrifying. But when you hand it to people in a movie or a book, it's like, oh, okay, it's at a safe distance.
Yes.
That kind of thing. You know, but somehow the lessons, we talked about the lessons still embed at some level, you know, and the artist who recognizes that truth gets to express that truth, because as an artist with something to express, that's what you do. You feel compelled to express that truth, and there's always going to be a space where people want to absorb that.
I want you to check out a movie. You'll probably like it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's Irrefutable Proof.
Irrefutable Proof?
Irrefutable Proof.
I will check that out.
And basically, it's this. I'm not casting any judgment. Not saying anything either. It's this chick. She basically, her whole stance is trying to prove that God doesn't exist. That's her whole thing. She writes a thesis, writes a formula, proves it, finds apparently other researchers that worked with Einstein back in the day, and Einstein knew this as well, that there was no God, and he had the formula and all the information, but he didn't deliver it to the public.
No God of any sort, no higher power, no beyond, no nothing. Just we are just a random act that happened, and we ended up in this place.
We're just here. That's it. That's what they're.
Einstein didn't believe that.
That's what they're.
Einstein did not believe that, by the way. I just want to put that out there for all of the atheists and the Christians who both want to try to grab him, the theist and the atheist. He was a pandeist, just like Tesla, just like Plato, just like Da Vinci, just like all the greatest minds of our past, Thomas Jefferson. We'll get into that later.
And I hate to kind of give spoiler alerts, but this is just kind of what I received from it. Towards the end of the movie, she did in fact prove that there was no God in her world.
Right.
In
Yes.
her world. And so she did meet. She met Plato. She met Einstein. She met Mark Twain.
Oh yeah, the man.
She met like all kinds of other random people basically at the focal point of light, to where the devil came through and said, "Thank you."
Wow.
Thank you for doing what I could never do.
Wow.
And so he basically just like walks her through as he just unleashes hell and says, "Thank you."
Wow.
Damn.
And so she proves it to the whole world, does a whole presentation, gets everybody behind it, science community is all clapping, and then she looks in this room full of empty people, these robots basically clapping for her as she accepts her award. And you can see the disgruntled look on her face.
Yeah.
She realizes, you're with people who have no faith in anything.
Yeah.
You don't believe in anything. This is it.
That's such a fucking powerful idea to understand.
That movie. It's on the list.
Like
top
it,
of the
man.
list.
You will like it, bro.
That is such a powerful idea to me. It's such it's a big deal.
Well, it's like that same Paul Harvey speech, "If I were the devil." You know, no one, like, I think, and the reason why, I look at this type of stuff is because there's something else there in humanity. There's something else there with our multidimensional nature.
Yes.
Something is here. And it talks about this even in the Bible too. I think it's Job chapter 6. I forget which verse, but it says Satan was going to and fro, up and within the earth. Something has the devil's attention so busy that he's over here working all over. So what is that? Why is something coexisting amongst us that we have no understanding of that is using us?
Mm-hmm.
And so we keep coming back to this. Is it an entity? Is it an energy? What is it? Is it a principality? What is it? I don't know what it is.
That's an excellent question. I've never really heard it put that way.
But I know there's something else there, you see, and that it does have an influence on us, and that there are different intensities as to how we're being interacted with.
Yeah.
Yes.
I totally agree with that.
No, that makes perfect sense. You're raising questions in my mind. Me personally, just being raised Southern Baptist.
Right here. Same here.
I was raised that if you were good, you went to heaven. If you were bad, you were punished by the devil after you died.
Makes perfect sense.
It was used to me as a scare tactic, is what I figured out. And as I grew in my spirituality and my own journey later in life, after just completely going away from any sort of religious, spiritual part of my life, cut all of that out, and returned to it just in the past few years, and really, through my friends and my understanding now that's a big part of just being a human, and you need that. Mm-hmm. The devil has not been a part of that. It's always just been about my spirituality and my understanding of God. And I until you're having this conversation, I'm like, what is the devil in my perspective?
Yeah.
What does that even mean to me or to anybody else, you know?
Well, this is what we were talking. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
This is what we were talking about before the show as well. Is just like we were talking about Freemasons, and Luciferianism, and Satanism. We were talking about, well, what does Luciferianism mean to you? Because to some people, Luciferianism means bringing the light, bringing the truth. So now we're getting into this whole like this weird thing to where it's just like, is searching for knowledge, is that like a bad thing? Who has the knowledge? What does this information do for you?
Sure.
You see, like if Lucifer is indeed the light bringer as put forth by Freemasons, that means that there is other information and other light that can empower us.
Yeah.
So what is your definition of evil might be someone else's definition of good.
Yeah. The way yeah, golly, man. There's just a
know.
billion different ways to take that conversation.
I know.
You know what I mean? To a billion different rabbit holes that we
Oh,
could scatter
sure,
down from that. But
sure.
it's like,
Go with the natural law.
yeah, the natural law to me is pretty straightforward,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to me it's onward and upward toward the light.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well, I want to put just real quick on
Wrap
this,
it up. Yeah.
because we always talk about people within the New Age community. They always tell you peace, love, unity, and respect. There has to be. I believe that there has to be acknowledgement of those darker elements to know why you chose
Yeah.
those positive ones. Your faith, your belief in a lot of these things have to be tested the same way when we're practicing these teachings and living a certain way. You come up against adversity to see how you're going to react. Your faith is the same way. Your belief is the same way. It has to be tested. Positivity has to be tested. Good has to be challenged so that we can keep the evil in check.
Yeah.
I believe that's where we're at now. New Agers will have you think, oh, all you have to do is think about positivity, peace, love, and light. It's like, yeah, I have those thoughts, but that means I have those thoughts. That's why I have to keep the demons at bay. That's why I have to keep them in check, because they know how to infiltrate what you think of as happiness. That's what's called ecstasy. That's what's called MDMA.
Yeah.
Ketamine. They can infiltrate what you think of as happiness if you do not control your thoughts.
Carl Jung and his work on the shadow, you know, is something that I had no idea about when I started doing shadow work, you know, and that was basically just realizing that Satan lives inside of me.
Okay.
And realizing that I'm capable, you know, of being a prison guard at Auschwitz.
You're wicked as the day is long.
Yeah, you have to be. It's in us. There's 311's like one of my favorite bands growing up, and they had this song. We talked earlier about how the music was like when you're young, you didn't know much. You loved a song, you didn't know why, and then all of a sudden you go through a spiritual awakening, and you start revisiting old music that you listen to, and you're like, holy shit, no wonder I liked it. It was embedding itself in me and my subconscious, even though I didn't know what it meant.
Yep.
You know, and one of the things that they sing about so much stuff, but it was like the devil, he's in me, and God, she is too. My yin hates my yang. What the hell are you gonna do? And it was like, that's pretty much how it is. I mean, your ego is what worries about keeping your body functioning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book called Return of the Bird Tribes that I think everybody should check out if you're open-minded to the exceptionally woo-woo.
Hey.
It's a channeled work by a channeled book by this lady, I think, who channels these avian beings, and talks about how the avians, the bird tribes, have been here for millions of years, and how they've always been interacting with us at a different level. It's not. I don't think it's exactly the same thing as the blue avian thing from like the David Wilcock, Corey Good story. It's not that. Mm-hmm. It's more like, hey, look at the Indian totem poles. Look at the Egyptian gods. The bird gods have always been around, and you know we love you. We've always been trying to interact with you, whatever. And one of the things that where was I going with that? What were we saying?
Shadow work.
Yeah. The shadow work is that they talk about in that book how the ego was created, because in that Return of the Bird Tribes book, they're talking about the creation of the human being, and that particular part of the story I found fucking fascinating, because
they had created the ego.
Yeah, they created the ego to keep the body together and keep it in order, to keep it fed, to keep it breathing, to keep it in its functional survivalist state. Which, if you look at what the reptilian brain is,
survival.
It's fucking exactly what the reptilian brain is. That is the seat of the ego, is in the reptilian brain. It's the breathing, the eating, the fucking, and then you look at what in Eastern mysticism, what is the root chakra? Survival, breathing, safety, it's existence. That's what it is. Then you look at how that corresponds to the planetary systems,
Yes.
And Saturn is your root chakra. And so to me, it's lots of different ways to look at it, but the ego is Satan. That's what it is. It's the lowest. It's the lowest of ourselves. It's the one that's only concerned with ourselves and me. Because if I have to push JC off a cliff because we only have one sandwich left to eat, my ego.
That's my sandwich.
No, my sandwich, bitch.
That's my sandwich. This is your cliff.
Eyeballing my sandwich. See how they're eyeballing my whiskey. You want a whiskey, EJ?
Yeah, let's do it. We are going to be drinking whiskey on air.
This is, I think every podcast that we've had so far, we've had a little dash of this whiskey. And
what were you saying about this? This is
so Kevin works with us, and he's Taiwanese, and he knows that I like Scotch. So this stuff won the World Whiskey Championship like 3 years. This is the Cavalan Solist Sherry Cask Strength Single Malt Whiskey, and if you can see that on the camera there,
single malt.
This is the Single Malt Cavalan.
Look at that.
That is good stuff, and this is cask strength. So when they pour this stuff out of the cask, it goes straight into the bottle, and here in the States, they water it down to like 40% usually, or at least into the 40s. So this stuff's 57% alcohol. So this is
57%.
Yeah, this is 120 proof.
All right. Well, I'm in Texas.
Well, but here's the deal. The reality is you can't appreciate Scotch if you drink it like above 40% alcohol. So you got to water it down.
Okay.
Sip some of that ice. Do you have some water in there? Sip that water out of there. There you go. Nice and tasty.
Sipped.
All right, so I'll do this, and I'll add some water for you.
The pouring is happening.
Smell that.
It's shaking.
It's strong.
You guys can't smell this, but I'm smelling it near the mic, and I'm trying to give it to you guys. Strong.
It's melting the foam on the microphone right now.
Straight lit. This is wow. Wow. So if you guys hear some slurring, it's because I didn't drink enough.
Oh yeah, babe.
Yep.
That's that right there. Hold on, let me pour some. JC, do you want?
I'll need to grab a glass.
Go get a glass.
Alrighty.
You need to
do
have
it,
some.
JC. We're having a gentleman's conversation.
Yeah. Shit gets real when we pull out the Cavalan.
Bro, I swear, I'll go ranting for hours. We start going with the whiskey.
Well,
I start talking about America and freedom and blah, blah, blah.
ammo
blah,
and
blah.
printer ink.
Ammo and printer ink. Rebellion. Revolution.
The reptile brain is in the middle of our brain. It's what handles all the lower functions of human activity. And if you study Eastern mysticism, you realize it is the root chakra. The reptile brain is the root chakra. Then you study Gnosticism, and you realize it's the ego. And you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you measure that with mythology, and you realize that it's Satan, it's Saturn, it's Set, it's Kronos, it's these things. Everything is everything. You know what I mean? All the symbolism of the different mythologies and astrology and astrotheology. It's all the same thing.
Yep. Just different interpretations.
Just different interpretations, different flavors. So many stories and so many flavors.
Well, this is what we were talking about before the show as well, is how,
Thank you, sir.
Hey, cheers.
How they call it demonic.
Everything
we're looking
Welcome to Texas.
Hey.
Motherfucker.
Thank you. Everything's bigger in Texas. Even my buzz. That'll do it. That's going to do it. We'll get another sip of that.
Yeah, man. Like
Oh, man, that's good.
turpentine aged in a cigar.
Shit. Well, we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
So yeah, people think it's demonic.
They do.
To think about this stuff.
Well, I think it's because, as we were talking about before, it kind of has its connotations to where it's dangerous or it's strange, it's new, it's foreign. It can't be controlled.
What can't be?
Your growth, or your veracity towards wanting to learn.
Yeah.
Your thirst towards knowledge.
That's like saying that driving a car is dangerous and you shouldn't do it because it can kill you, because it can get out of control, and you don't know who else is on the road, and
it's all about the intention.
It's all
how you use the weapon.
Yeah. How good of a driver are you?
Yep.
You know what? Because I'm capable of doing things spiritually and mentally that I was not capable of doing a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because I'm able to drive and do things maybe now that I couldn't a few years ago.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about, is just like how to implement these practices. How to create like a life that has like a flow state. How to get into like a mindset to where you're able to identify what's beneficial, what's negative, where you need to improve, and different things like that.
Okay.
If you don't, and I was saying this before, if you don't have the knowledge or the information, how can you start making those corrective actions? That limits your potentiality. That limits your ability to work magic here in this world because you do not know. You are literally incapable of comprehending higher moves, higher abilities, higher states of awareness to integrate. Like I said, that change that needs to happen here. You're unable to do that if you're focused on things like where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep.
Yeah.
If you care about very basic stuff, getting back to that reptilian mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that we're discussing here is stuff that's meant to liberate you from living in that basic box of just surviving and just getting by. This is why they consider knowledge of this kind demonic.
I believe 100% that you're right. Last conversation we had on the podcast, one of the things we touched on briefly was Adam had mentioned having anxiety, and it was like a warning sign. I'm having anxiety. I've got to change something. I think there is something to be said at the start of this for anybody who's listening is like, well, how do I start to become more aware? I know for me personally, it's recognizing my own emotions.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I'm really sad. Well, what's causing that? Why am I sad? Is it okay to be sad? Am I making myself sad? Am I not doing what I need to do and therefore I am sad? But it all roots back to you, and the more introspective you can get and sit in those emotions, especially the hard ones to sit in, then you can start
instead of drinking your way out of it.
You can start to take control of those things. Yeah. And from there, all of a sudden you have this new superpower. Now you're self-aware of your own reactions, and we all react with emotions at a core level. Everybody does to a certain extent.
Triggered.
Yeah. So once you start to figure out those, then it expands. Then it goes out. Yep. Then you can start to take control, and you literally can start to change your environment, change your universe. You can start to understand things that are going to happen before they happen and how you're going to react to them. So before you react that way, you already have a plan.
You're moving in that flow state. I had on Christy Scarborough and her attorney, T. Matthew Phillips, whenever they were launching a lawsuit against Facebook. And I don't know how we got onto it talking about there, but I remember talking to her specifically about how freedom to me is discipline. Like freedom to me is being able to master yourself and saying, no, I will not allow to feel this. I will not allow myself to feel that. You know what? I'm just going to go because I'm content. Mm-hmm. Freedom to me is discipline, mastery of self-awareness, and so much more.
It's very Buddhist of you.
Well, I looked at Buddhism a few times and Taoism, but it's because I feel like that's we can't be free if we're
a slave to our emotions.
Yeah, if we're a slave to our emotions, if we're upset by what somebody down the street said, forever ago, or if somebody's looking at you sideways because you didn't, XYZ, examine your zipper. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? You can't be free if you're letting everything else dictate who you are.
Yeah.
You have to figure out who you are. And the only way you can do that is by doing that inner work, is by taking the steps to look inside yourself, realize, hey, I got to work on these things. I get a little heated about these.
Well, let me throw you back to a conversation we were having earlier before we got on air.
What's up?
About how having a spiritual belief system that entreats you to look within, that calls to you to do inner work, to learn who you are, and to live as your truest, most authentic self. That is called demonic by so many people. Mm-hmm. And it's if you were a big, massive religion that wanted to keep people from finding truth and from living in it and being happy, the easiest and most obvious thing to do
is to demonize truth.
Is to demonize truth and demonize looking within. I literally, like, so there's this problem with the New Age thing because the New Age movement comes with its flaws. I think chief among them is what you just said. Focus only on the positive. Love, light, and happiness and joy. And if I have my whole life's falling apart, just turn a blind eye to it and say it's going to be okay.
That's dangerous.
It's fucking crazy dangerous, and a lot of people do it. That's a big problem. But I also see a lot of people, your buddy we were talking about earlier, who who goes after the New Age guys because he's like, oh, this is demonic, this looking within, finding truth in yourself. It's like people need God to ascend. I don't know if he's ever said that, but like people, you got to have God. And it's like I see these religious people on my page and other people's pages, and they're like, you can't find the truth on your own. You can't survive on your own. You are a lowly, your righteousness is as dirty rags to him. And it's like, you start to see just how evil and fucked up this monotheistic death cult is. It's like you literally tell another human being. I just imagine sitting my 8-year-old down and being like, hey, buddy, listen. You are filthy. You are worthless.
You ain't crap without God.
You are nothing without the Most High, who loves you, but if you don't accept it, it'll send you to hell.
Yeah, just scramble his brain, why don't you?
Yeah, it scrambled my brain when I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely.
JC, how did you handle that?
I struggled with it.
It made
for
no
the
fucking
longest
sense.
No.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one day you wake up and realize it just doesn't work quite that way.
Like it's not that.
And then you realize the next level beyond that is, if you have a truly beautiful mystical experience, I doubt it ever. I've never met anyone who got that experience from someone else.
Yep.
It came from it looking internally, having an internal experience, and then once you have one of those, and you realize that this is what the church tries to demonize, and this whole looking within thing, and with this, you and I talked about thankfulness earlier. JC, you and I have talked about thankfulness. I mean, just endlessly, right? Something we talk about a lot. Like, it's not like looking within takes God out of the equation. It's not like looking within makes your ego huge. It's not like looking within, jacks you up on your own awesomeness. It's like, dude, those blissful, ecstatic experiences, when you go to look within, you go, holy shit, I am the product of some really awesome thing that happened, and I'm here because through no work of my own, I was born. I was one of a trillion sperm that made the fucking trip. Victory number one.
Attaboy.
Attaboy. But I had nothing to fucking do with that I'm aware of. So where's the ego come in there?
Your tail wasn't swimming twice as hard?
Surely. I don't know. I don't have the pictures anymore. I
lost the trophy in the last move.
Yeah. Remind me to tell you about the time that JC lost the fucking best video ever.
Oh, goodness.
But anyway, it's like when you really do the inner work, there's no ego that comes out of that. It actually dissolves the ego, because that's when you realize I didn't do a fucking thing to get here. I didn't really do anything to be born. I didn't do anything to select my parents. I didn't do anything to pick my elementary school. I didn't do anything to pick my middle school or my high school, probably. And by the time I got out of all of that chaos, I might have had a good time or a bad time or a hard time or an easy time or whatever. Everybody's got their own story after high school. But like up until 18 years old, you have fucking zero control over your life, really. You're a product purely of your environment and your genetics.
Very true.
You know what I mean? So good, bad, or indifferent, you got to at least give thanks for the fact that you got 2 eyes, a nose, a face, 2 legs, and your health.
Absolutely.
And food, that you survived at 18 years old and didn't starve to death or die of AIDS that you caught from your mom in vitro when you were born, like a lot of people do. There's a billion things to just dwell on that are awesome, that you should be thankful for every single day. And if you live a righteous and upright life, for me, it's sort of in the Gnostic, Buddhist, Hinduistic, shamanic, whatever, this big cocktail of theologies that I've, piecemealed together. But it's like, I'm pretty fucking demonic in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
And all I think about is love and understanding and trying to be a force for good in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. To bridge the thoughts real quick, JC was talking about being raised Southern Baptist, and we're talking about appreciation and gratuity. That's, even to this day, I don't think like what I do is like big. I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
I don't have that like I think it's boasting whenever I do that. And so like, that's something I have to work on internally. It's like, no, you're not boasting. You're taking account of your own achievements. And at another level, it's not even your own achievements. It's what you're stepping in to want.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, for a perfect example is like, I don't do anything. I just aggregate all these other amazing people's work.
Yeah.
I'm being acknowledged for being an aggregator when it's all these other amazing people who are doing all this other stuff. It's like, no, you still have to give yourself credit for being a part of that piece of the system that's doing it.
Yeah, I think giving thanks for the role that you've been given.
But that's still something that personally, like, I can say it to you, sure, right now, but I have to like internalize it because I have like a very hard time accepting my accolades.
Dude, it's a battle. It's a battle we all face, right? I compliment JC on something. Happens all the time, right? Whether it's a meal that he fucking cooks that blows everybody's hair off.
Nice.
You know, or a song that he does or whatever that makes me cry like a little girl. It's like I tell him how good it is, and it's like he's like, oh, fuck. You know, he shuts down.
Yeah.
I went and saw my buddy Jeff Sullivan up in Connecticut this weekend, and you know, was complimenting him on some work that he was doing. He just hangs his head and he's like, oh, thank you, you know. But he can't look you in the eye, and we talked about that. You know, and Jeff wouldn't mind me bringing that up because he struggles with that. We all struggle with how do we take compliments. I think a good man should have a problem receiving. You know, if you're a good man who does a great thing, should have a problem receiving that compliment for it.
I believe so.
You know what I mean?
To an extent.
To an extent.
You should be respectful to the complimentor.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it is okay with being humble enough or understanding enough to kind of cringe at that. No, I just did a thing.
Yeah. That's basically
I,
what it is. It's like, I just did a thing and like people like it. Crap.
You know, I think here's where I learned this from a guy that I was in a band with. I was in a Christian band with this guy when I was young. JC knows him. And he's somebody that people just used to go, dude, you can write music, you can sing, you can play guitar, you're unreal. And he would not cringe. He wouldn't blink. He would go, man, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. Glory to God. It's just God.
Glory be to
and
God.
Just didn't blink.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
true.
And that's the fucking thing. That's the thing, and that's why I just keep going back to like what I told you at lunch, DJ. It was like it used to seem cheesy to me when I was in church for people to do that, to kind of deflect. Like, oh, glory to God. And I thought it was kind of self-serving, but man, I think it's the most appropriate way to handle things.
Yeah, because it's not like I tell people.
Especially if in that moment you actually go into your brain and redirect that compliment to God, energy, source, nature, whatever it is, the universe.
Listeners that have like followed me since day one, like I'll tell people this to this day, prior to even getting involved in everything that I'm doing, I would be talking, and it felt like something would come over me, and I would just let wisdom and truth come out, and then it would be done, and then that was it. It would just shut down. To this day, I could not figure out what that was. Yep. And that's why, like, whenever people say, "Hey, thank you for doing this," it's like it's not me. Like it's it's something greater, and and I'm the vessel. I'm being allowed to be the vessel for this work to come through. Whatever words are being said, some of these are my own, but a lot of this is being worked through me. Yeah, and I'm just allowing it to do so. And I think that's a part of the other reason as to why I don't feel like I should take credit, because it's something bigger than me that's doing this, and I'm just being the puppet, allowing it to work through Instagram, work through the voice, and work through everything.
So you can maintain, what I would say about that is you can maintain humility in that situation the way that you do. Mm-hmm. Just maintain humility by acknowledging that it ain't you. Yeah. Right? You can maintain humility. But the next level beyond humility is gratefulness. And it's like, yes, in that moment, you acknowledge that it didn't come from you. So that song I played for you earlier that I wrote, you know, that 90s punk rock type song.
It was nice.
Right?
You guys would like it. You guys would like it.
But
if you played Tony Hawk's Underground, you would like it.
Yeah, it was probably belonged on that soundtrack. He was like, it sounds like somebody here on Tony Hawk. I was like, damn, dude, I'll take that. Yeah, dude. I'll totally take that. When I wrote that, JC, Ashley, my people around me, they were like, damn, man, that's a really good song. Yeah. And Ashley, especially because she loves me and she's my biggest fan, she was like, babe, that's fucking amazing. It's amazing. And I went, dude, I had nothing to do with it. It wasn't me. I had very little to do with it. It just came through me, and I just let it come through me, and I let it do its thing. So that was my humility, and she thought I was being overly humble. But it was through that process of acknowledging that blessing that song was to me, that I went, oh my God. And I remember this day, standing in the shower after that realization, after that song came on, and all of a sudden just collapsing into tears of thankfulness, because I went, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. This, not only did I not have anything to do with this thing, but like, it's a great thing that I was able to channel and to do.
Yes.
That was not of my own doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was just, I don't know, that was going from just acknowledging that thing to giving thanks to that thing. And I just remember putting my head in my hands and just thanking God, the universe, nature, source, the great spirit, the grand architect of the universe, whatever you want to call it, and just giving thanks. And it was that time, for the first time in my life, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, that I went, that's what it means to be thankful. Holy shit. So on that note, we're going to take a break.
Let's do it.
So you guys, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to, I don't know, probably go pee and have another beer or something like that. Take a breath, walk around.
Let's do it.
We love you guys. We'll see you back here in a minute. Peace.
Later.
Later.